Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. This is another part of my response to where Mark Crutcher at Life Dynamics interviewed three women who had worked for Douglas Karpen in Texas. Karpen, the Texas Gosnell. At the time, there were hopes because Gosnell was being prosecuted for killing babies that were born alive, that Texas would prosecute Karpen for killing babies born alive. But there just wasn't anybody dogged enough to want to go against a National Abortion Federation member. And Karpen was a National Abortion Federation member. I'll link to some stuff about Karpen below. This guy was a piece of work, and the fact that the National Abortion Federation would have him as a member, and that there would be weeping and rending of garments and gnashing of teeth and sackcloth and ashes when his clinic was closed because he didn't meet safety requirements, tells you the expectations of safety and good counseling of the abortion lobby. But at any rate, these three women had worked for Karpen, and Crutcher interviewed them. And I'm trying to do videos that are no more than 10 minutes long where I comment on what they're saying, and I can add links below so that you can learn more about the things they're talking about. So let's pick up where I left off.
That this doctor did. And of course, the soft spot was one of the spots that he would take one of the forceps, or the, what is it called, the dilators, and stick it down the soft spot of the fetus's head.
Now, I had stopped before, right when she said about snipping, how he did the same snipping at the base of the skull that Kermit Gosnell did. Gosnell attended National Abortion Federation meetings, as did Karpen, and I have the sneaking suspicion that the two of these guys were buddies and that they talked about this stuff a lot, which may be a huge part of why Gosnell thought he was going to get away with it.
You saw this happen?
Oh, yes. I think every morning I saw on several occasions. If we had 20-something patients, of course, maybe 10 or 12 or 13 or 15 patients would be large procedures. And
now, notice she's saying large procedures, not late procedures. And, if this is not something that somebody who wasn't in the abortion business would say, most of us would refer to late abortions. But Gosnell's staff also referred to big or large. These were large abortions, not late abortions. So this seems to be terminology that gets used inside the business.
And out of those large procedures, I'm pretty sure I was seeing at least 3 to 4 fetus that were completely delivered in some way or another, because sometimes laminaria causes the cervix to get so soft that you don't need a lot of pulling or anything on it. Once you take that package out, 9 times out of 10, that fetus is ready kind of just to flow from inside of the uterus out into,
When you say package, you mean
the laminaria package insertion. Yes,
right.
sir.
Okay, so the laminaria are they're these little sticks of sterile dry seaweed that are inserted into the cervix, and they absorb moisture from the woman's body, and they expand and they dilate the cervix. And one of the things that was going with Karpen is he was complaining at a National Abortion Federation meeting that women were coming in for day 1 of their abortions. He was inserting the laminaria, doing whatever passed for counseling. Well, his staff was doing whatever passed for counseling. The women would go outside and they'd chat with the pro-lifers on the sidewalk, change their minds and want the laminaria out, and they would go on and have their babies. I'll provide a link to a story about a lawsuit that was filed against him for refusing to remove the laminaria. The baby was born alive but died of abortion injuries and extreme prematurity. But that's what the laminaria are. And what she's saying is sometimes he'd put in so many, be dilating the cervix more than he needed to just reach in and pull the baby out in bloody chunks. He was putting so many in that the cervix would dilate and thin and the fetus would come right out.
You take that out and the baby's ready to come out.
Yes, sir. As soon as that, or sometimes he would go ahead and bust the water sac, and there you go. You practically had a fetus, in the pan.
Notice she said a fetus in the pan. So again, that's not something somebody from the outside would say. Different facilities, they might have a pan, they might have a bucket, they might catch it in their hands or on a tray. So the fact she's saying in the pan, that's talking about the specific procedure in that clinic for catching whatever is coming out of the woman's body. They used a pan. It was in the pan. And with Karpen and Gosnell, you're kind of looking at Karpen was dilating them so much that the baby would practically fall out into the pan. Gosnell was often using drugs to induce labor. And his staff, though, they referred to the fetus as precipitating. And Steve Massoff, who was an unlicensed doctor working at the clinic, said that it would rain fetuses. They used the word precipitate because they just kind of rained down. They fell out. So what she's describing coincides a lot with what they discovered at Kermit Gosnell's clinic. And that's a lot of why Karpen got dubbed the Texas Gosnell by pro-lifers.
So,
And you see the baby alive,
yes, sir.
and him to kill that baby outside the womb.
Yes, sir.
And this would be done by jamming some sort of instrument into the
Either that
soft spot.
or actually twisting the head off the neck, kind of with his own bare hands.
Now, when she says twisting the head off the neck, I don't think she's describing pulling the head entirely off the body. I think she's saying dislocating it, so that the head's just kind of hanging there limp, and there's no longer a good connection there. It's been dislocated.
And you saw that happen.
Yes, sir.
So he would
Sometimes
twist the
he
head.
would
I'm
go
sorry.
sometimes he would go through the stomach as well.
Sometimes he would do what?
He would like force it through the stomach
The instrument,
Mhm.
is it
and
beers?
like twist it.
Yeah.
She said beers, and that's spelled B-I-E-R-S, and that is a kind of forceps. And she's going to go into more detail describing it later. But a Beers forceps is a kind of forceps that's used in abortion. I'll provide a link below where Tony Levatino describes, I don't know if it was a Beers, a forceps, a Beers, a Hearn, or a Sofer forceps that he described. They're all very similar. The business end is pretty aggressive. They're built more like salad tongs. They're hinged in the middle, okay, like salad tongs or like a scissors. But the gripping end is kind of an oval shape, and it's got backward facing teeth on, kind of like a python. You know, if a python bites and you try to pull your hand out of the python's mouth, the teeth are pushing this way, so you're just getting tighter. The teeth on the forceps are pointed that way, so that if the fetus is pulling and he or she cannot yank that limb out of the forceps, and you've got a good grip to pull that limb off.
And you saw that.
Anything that he could get to the fastest. Like she said, the umbilical, he was probably perforating the umbilical cord. I normally saw either the snipping of the spine or the introduction of the instrument in the soft spot of the fetus.
Now notice that they're not all telling exactly the same story. She's saying, this young woman saying that she would see him introduce instruments into the baby's abdomen, and then she says no, she only ever saw the snipping or the putting the instrument through the soft spot. So that again is another sign that they weren't coached. They're each telling what they observed.
Normally. Or twisting of the neck.
I remember he would put like his finger
Yeah, or his finger. He'd take his finger and then
through the throat.
Yeah.
Okay, so all three of them are agreeing on this, and she's saying through the throat. Let's back up just a tad, but I want you to see their body language and their agreement on how this is something all three of them observed.
Or twisting of the neck.
I remember he would put like his finger
Yeah, or his finger. He'd take his finger and then
through the throat.
Yeah. You remember that the one that he did with the baby, the fetus came out and it was alive. He had thought he had actually killed it already, and he opened up his eyes and grabbed his hand, his finger. Remember that one?
No. What happened?
supposedly they said that it was a botch. And it was a botched abortion, but the fetus was still alive. He thought it was dead. And the fetus opened his eyes and actually
Grabbed his finger.
was able to grab his finger. And the whole procedure, I guess, while he's doing the procedure.
He was getting
Because after the fetus, of course, he has to massage the abdomen to bring the placenta down, or grab it with the forceps to bring it out.
And this baby was
Was
killed
alive.
now. Huh?
He was alive.
Well, yeah, he's looking at it, grabbing his finger.
Yeah.
Yeah. He thought he had finished with the baby.
He thought it was deceased.
It was a disease already. He was getting ready to put it in the bag.
Did he talk about that?
One of his employees did. That's how I found out.
He doesn't talk about that.
So it's interesting that the three of them remember hearing this story from another employee, and they're not claiming that they saw it, but you can see the agreement that all three of them heard the same story, and talks about ready to put it in the bag. And they're all assuming they know what the bag means, which is no doubt the biohazard bag, rather than sending the fetus to a pathology lab. Just interesting observation there. And this is at 10 minutes, so I'm going to stop this one and I'm going to start up again. So come back for episode 3.